everyone. Welcome back to the Canadian Ruck. This is Jamie Gray. This pod is going to be a bit of a discussion on the Canada-US game off the weekend. I want to start first by letting everybody know this is my last podcast for a little while. I'll get into that towards the end. But before we get there, I just want to give a little hats off to the 9/11 victims from the 20th anniversary that happened yesterday, Saturday. 20 years ago, since that tragic day, I often think of the Alan Jackson song, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning? So if you're a country fan, you probably know that one. If not, you might have heard it. I remember personally being in my first class at University of New Brunswick out here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It was Arts 1000. I remember it was a massive class. There's like 600 in the auditorium. Class stopped as the prof, I believe it was his EA, delivered a note, and he read it to us. And it was about the first plane crashing in the first tower. I remember walking home vividly after class and just sitting with my roommate. We were watching the news. I don't know if it was CNN or Fox or whatever. We were just watching the news, and we saw the second plane hit into the second tower live. And both of us thinking it was a replay of the first plane, and just dumbfounded and lost for words as to what was going on. It was eerie. Fredericton's not a big city, but I remember for days there was no airplanes flying by. There's no air traffic, and it was just weird. And being in New York, actually, helping my old high school team, my coach at Grant Beckenham had asked, if I could come along as a chaperone. And we were in New York City just a few months prior on tour, and, going by the Twin Towers and thinking, I love New York. I still love New York, and thinking how amazing it was. And then all of a sudden they're gone in the blink of an eye. And, every year since, as his history teacher, we talk about this every year in class, and we're at the point now where all the kids that I teach, none of them were born when this happened 20 years ago. And it's something that I think about often, and it always brings a tear to my eye. And, personally, I had nobody that was impacted. Like, I didn't know any of the victims, but it's still one of those things that is, it's hard to comprehend even 20 years on. I do want to give hats off to the Americans. It was a real beautiful halftime tribute video they pieced together with the players and their coaches talking about the significance on the event and how it impacted their lives. It was very moving, and it was a nice touch to see. Now let's get on to the match. And let's just talk about this quick. As I said, this is my last pod, so my contact information, it's thrown up there on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our email. And for past guests, and if you're new, if this is your first pod, I apologize. You missed the previous 87, but they're all listed on my website, thecanadianruck.weebly.com. And you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. So we're all over. If this is your first, go back and listen to the other 87, see what you think. If this is if you've listened to all 88, amazing. I'd love to get an email from you. Let me know that you've been a lifer for these pods. It's been pretty cool. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but first I want to talk about that Canada-US game that happened on the weekend, game 2 of the aggregate series. And just going to walk through, I took some notes throughout the game. So first half, pressure by the Eagles constantly, the quick ball, strong running, good running lines, and that carried out throughout the entire match. Canada, though, they had some tough tacklers. They were strong on D throughout as well. Canada, they took a penalty 3 minutes in, about 15 meters out in front of the post, 3-0 Eagles after 3.5 minutes. A.J. McGinty's boot was on fire. Canada grouped from that kick. Lesage and Heaton, man, they were massive tacklers all game. Led to a pressure kick where Rumble made some great meters. And Canada wins the penalty. Cooper Coates, my Lord, this young kid, he can do a bit of everything. He's fast. He's great under the high ball. He kicks one from 40-plus meters out. First penalty kick for this kid, 3-all. From there, Canada worked hard to earn a penalty 7 meters in front of the post. Nelson slotted through. It worked great because Nelson worked that new 50-22 to perfection, which led to a good phases by the Canadians, and Nelson then converts that penalty. Canada takes a 6-3 lead at the 9-minute mark. The U.S. were pressuring, but Canada's like they get that lead. 10 minutes in, the ref calls for time off. Looks like a dangerous tackle, which was happened. Heaton was flipped ass over tea kettle by the blindside flanker. If you didn't see that, it looked like a WWE move. It was pretty impressive yet grisly at the same time. Pretty greasy. Led to a yellow card. Lucky break for the Eagles. Could have been a red. Canada's now got a one-man advantage for 10 minutes. Unfortunately, they can't take advantage. But the U.S. do. The U.S. win a penalty and kick the ball deep into Canadian territory, setting up a driving maul, which they were working to perfection. Number 7 flanker at the 15-minute mark while they're still one man down. 8-6 Ingles. Again, McGinty kicking well, but he just pushes this conversion wide. Nelson shortly after then commits a knock at the 22, and the U.S. are pushing hard, and they look to have touchdown in the corner after a slick kick pass from McGinty. Ref has to go to the TMO, tries award it to the number 14 wing. Beautiful play. 13-6 lead for the U.S. Unfortunately, though, Nelson kicked straight in a touch on the return. Wind was playing a havoc all day, and this one goes straight out. So the U.S. naturally, they're going to call for a scrum at center and then earn a penalty on the massive scrummage. Canada, you got to tighten up. It's early in the match, and we're bucking a little bit under the pressure. From there, deep pressure from the U.S. again, and the U.S. big boy, number 3 prop, he almost touches down. Like, he was right there. But Kanoa Lloyd, he was recovering underneath there and ripped the ball off him, kicks the ball out of touch. Doesn't get a lot of distance, but he was under pressure and he was in an awkward position. U.S. continued to bring strong, powerful running, though, in the first 30. Running hard, running straight, and throwing everything they can at the Canadian defense. They've got some big centers, and they were doing some damage. Canada had been on the hind foot, and their defense is working overtime throughout the entire first half. And it's only a matter of time, and that time pays off for the U.S. as their pressure finally gets them in. It's number 7 runs in his second, and this one's in pretty close to the left post. 18-6 U.S. with about 10 to go in the first. Canada wins another penalty, though, 25 meters out, looking to close the gap on the score. Remember, the U.S. only need to win by 14 or more to win this series. Nelson slots this one through, making the score 18-9 for the U.S. So down by 9, not much time left in the first half. But the U.S., though, they returned the pressure, driving Canada further back time and time again. Canada's D take an offside penalty as the U.S. are ferocious on the attack night. They're all over the place. The U.S. are kicking for the corner. They give up the simple 3-point penalty kick because they want more points. U.S. knock one on just before it touches down in the corner, and Canada wins a 5-meter penalty off that and a chance to relieve some pressure with 4 minutes to go in the half. It's a tough scrum, but Canada earns a penalty as the U.S. number 1 was driving in. It was a great call from the ref. It was a pretty touch and go there. But Canada takes another penalty with 20 seconds left in the half, and the U.S. go for the corner again, really hoping to work that maul. It's been a force for them all series. Canada stops the ensuing maul, but the U.S. have a penalty advantage for an infraction, offside infraction, and the U.S. finally punch it over right under the posts. Eagles' 4th try of the half, and the 3rd by the number 7 flanker. Man, he is a monster this game. McGinty has an easy chip over the bar to give the U.S. a 25-9 commanding lead at the half. Halftime, though, Canada had been great at the breakdown, but they've had the ball far too infrequently. Brody had some great ball moment at as the scrum half. Nelson was pretty decent with his precision kicks, other than that blunder at off the restart, kicking the ball straight into touch. Quatrin was doing quite well with his lineouts, pretty accurate. Rumble, man, he was a beast, running hard, running straight, great at the breakdown. Lesage and Heaton, tackling beasts all first half. Coach Jones really needs to get these guys regrouped at intermission. They're lacking consistency between game in St. John's and Glendale. It's really kind of hamstrung Canada. Canada's got a young squad. We all know that. I imagine in preparation for the Rugby World Cup, a qualification still needs to happen. Canada's been on the D for the majority of the first half. The U.S. dominated possession and territory, and the first half score shows it. Need to find if there's a different team for the second half. I'm not talking subs. I mean, Canada needs to see some heart, some grit, passion, intensity, and determination that was on full display in that first match of the series, much like we come to expect from our Canadian men and women when they take the pitch. Second half, though, Canada gets a break right off the kickoff as the U.S. knocks the ball on just outside their 22. Canada's a nice rush up the field, but Coates commits a knock on and the U.S. regain possession deep inside their own 20. Just those minor handling infractions are creeping in again. The wind is picked up, pushing the high ball all over the pitch. This could be a game changer in the second half as McGinty kicks one straight into touch at his 10. This leads to a penalty for early contact on the U.S. and Nelson chips one inside the 22 for another Canadian lineout. Howard comes on to hook. He's known to be a great lineout thrower, but the U.S. steal his first lineout, leading to a good clearance from the U.S. Canada has then, from this, they get a goal line dropout straight into the sure hands of the Eagles' number 9. And this is a pretty nice kick. About 42 meters out, he lands a beautiful drop goal, 28-9 for the U.S. at the 49-minute mark. Shortly after that, Matt Heaton comes off and Kyle Bailey replaces him. Heaton looked a little banged up coming off the pitch. Hopefully he's okay. Eagles block a kick. 9 runs it down from the 50. So the scrum half, who just slotted a 42-yard drop goal, now runs one in from about 50 for the Eagles' 5th try of the match. Eagles with a resounding 33-9 lead. Canada wins another penalty, and Nelson chips to the corner, trying to get that driving maul work, but unfortunately the U.S. steal the line out. Again, our line out, we were struggling. The wind was bad, some inaccurate throws, some inaccurate time jumps. It was just our line out wasn't working the way it was in St. John's. U.S. belted down the field, and Lloyd does a great job under the high ball, under big-time pressure. And Canada send the ball back down into U.S. territory, but the U.S. are clinical in setting up their rucks to relieve pressure. They were textbook on their rucks this weekend, much better than they were in the first weekend. From there, the U.S. bring the pressure back down to the Canada's 5-meter, looking to set up another maul. Canada's defense on the maul has been pretty good tonight, and they stop it, and they actually win the ball. It was pretty good. Is this a turning point? Is this where Canada can actually get some points on the board and relieve some pressure and maybe take back that aggregate score? Maybe not, though, as the U.S. win a penalty on the scrum, on that scrum reset. Some scrappy play is starting to show through on both sides. At this point, Rumble's pushing around. Some of the boys are pushing each other back and forth after the whistle. The ref's trying to take control because he doesn't want things get out of hand. Hopefully, Canada can keep clear heads and stay focused on looking to add some more points. However, U.S. score again. Try number 6, this time by the big number 3 prop. 6 tries so far, 38-9 for the U.S. with only 16 minutes remaining. U.S. have that massive lead, and as I said, they only need to win by 14 to advance to Uruguay for the next go for their chance to punch into the Rugby World Cup 2023 in France. Canada on the restart, it's starting to move the ball. We haven't seen this type of play from Canada all game, and it looks pretty damn good, right? There's about 15 minutes left, and Canada actually starts to move the ball. It's been a long time coming. But leading from that, Canada does, again, kick away possession. They've been slow to pressure the receiver, and they give the U.S. plenty of time to counter kick and regroup. So Canada all game, they haven't been passing the ball. They've been kicking. And unfortunately, the pressure, that rush pressure hasn't been there. The U.S. have had lots of time and space to do what they want. 6 minutes left, though. Canada's another line out inside the Eagles' 50. And Canada's not giving up. Last 15 minutes are probably Canada's best. They've taken a couple of quick penalties. They're trying to punch another one in. Canada's scrum has improved in the second half by taking a penalty with 1 minute left with a hand in the scrum. But Canada finally lands a line out after the full-time whistle and went for a score. And luckily, they roll one in, but they get awarded a penalty try at the same time. So they get a full 7 points as the U.S. are showing a yellow card at the full. Unfortunately, U.S. wins 38-16. U.S. advancing, and Canada will have to climb the steeper and longer road to qualify for France. Jones had some strong runs in that number 12 jersey. Hard, straight, without fear. Coates, again, another solid second half. He was activated in the backs much more frequently in the first. Some with running with ball in hand a lot more. It's pretty impressive. Lineout let them down. Hey, it happens, but it also hurts. Second half was better, a little more possession in territory, but they had trouble converting the chances, unlike how they did last weekend. Canada left 2 to 3 tries off the board with some knocks, missed lineouts, etc. It was one of those games that we just weren't there. Unfortunately, you hear lots of banter on social media after this loss by the Canadians. And I get it. Hey, I'm a fan. I get it. There were parts of the game that I didn't like. I'm not sure if the game plan was to kick as much as they did, but it was definitely different than it was in St. John's. Was the weather, was that why? Did that induce this issue of let's kick as much? Or was the weather part as to reasons to why, it was raining on and off throughout the match? It was windy at sometimes. It was really nasty windy. And that was carrying the ball all over the place. So was that part of the reason they weren't passing the ball as much? They weren't running with the ball in hand as much. Canada also seemed a little less confident or less driven in this match. And I hate to say that because these guys are driven athletes, but it seemed like they were lacking a little bit. When that happens, and it does happen, but we talked about consistency earlier, and that's part of it. Do we fault the plan that was in place? Do we fault what looked like the lack of execution? Or do we just hand it to the Eagles, who are a ferocious bunch, for the full 80 minutes? I'd like to think that's what it was. I think the Eagles just brought a different intensity that Canada wasn't prepared for. I'm not sure. I don't even want to say that, because that means that the boys weren't prepared. And I think they were prepared. But I think the Eagles just were that much more ready to go and ready to commit and brought a little more consistency than Canada did. A couple of things to note. One, hats off to the Canadians. They played a hell of a 2-game series. Hats off to the U.S. because they played a hell of a 2-game series as well. On aggregate score, U.S. won by 9. You got to remember, too, U.S. scored a late try versus Canada and St. John, like really late. That would have changed the aggregate score to 2 instead of 9. Maybe then Canada does go for a couple more of those penalty kicks. I don't know. Either way, it was a very close 2-game series, and it was nice to see Canada finally get a win against the U.S. It's been a long time coming. Canada dominated game 1, and the U.S. rebounded and dominated game 2. Now, Canada's playing Chile instead of Uruguay. I think this will be good. Hear me out, because it's a longer road, and I get that, but just hear me out. Canada's going to take them on the field in Langford, BC on Saturday, October 2nd. Uruguay's ranked 16th, one spot above the U.S. Canada is now ranked 21st. We've moved up a spot, while the Chileans are ranked 28th. Back in 2018, if you remember, Canada lost 38-29 and 32-31 in qualification against Uruguay for a qualifier for the Rugby World Cup of 2019. Now, I know it's a longer road for Canada, but this also means more meaningful games to get into the Rugby World Cup. There's still opportunities to qualify and maintain their ever-present Rugby World Cup record. Canada's qualified for every tourney since the inception of the Rugby World Cup back in 1987 in New Zealand. Canada will play Chile, the SAR3 Nation runner-up, with the winner to play in the Americas 2 playoff against the loser of the Americas 1 encounter between the U.S. and the Los Teros, which is Uruguay. From there, place in the final qualification tournament, November 2022, will offer the runner-up of the Americas 2 playoff one last shot at redemption. There, they will compete with a third-place team from the Rugby Europe Championship, the loser of the Asia Pacific playoff, and the Rugby Africa Cup winner for the final ticket to France 2023. So, a longer road, but some more meaningful games leading to the Rugby World Cup. I think this could be a good thing for Canada. I think here on out, of course, we've got more games to play, but there are also meaningful games that will get us to where we need to go. Canada, men's, good luck. From here, as I said, this is my final pod for a while, taking a bit of a hiatus. I'm not sure if this is my last one ever or if this is just a break. I need to recharge my batteries. School's starting back up, and it's always hectic to start the year. I need to free a little bit of time up to focus on my actual job. You guys all get that. My wife is finishing up her second master's while working full-time, and she's also now going to be spending some evenings tutoring students. Throwing my full-time job, coaching at school, and starting my second master's soon, I need a little time away from the mic. Now, if some big names want on, I'm sure I can find time to pump out some high-quality pods, but I'm taking a break and actively looking for guests. Is this the last sign-off? Well, I don't know. I want to give a heartfelt thank you to all the listeners who put up with my rants and enjoyed my guests. It's been great to hear from so many of you and the support and messages I've received over the past 18, 19 months. It's been absolutely amazing. I also want to thank all of my guests. All 88 pods has been a ton, and we've had some pretty big names on. I don't want to mention names because I feel like I should mention them all. So many amazing rugby people have opened their hearts by sharing their rugby journey. Many have been rugby heroes of mine and legends of the game, and I feel blessed to have been able to chat rugby and life with all of them, absolutely all of them. What you heard for 30 to 60 minutes of a podcast was often a 2-hour conversation. The calls were pretty cool. And during COVID, it's been one of my highlights. It's really kept me sane. I want to thank my son Rylan for creating the intro and outro music. It's been really cool having him share an interest in this and taking a creative approach, especially as a 12-year-old, to create my music, and that I have enjoyed. Lastly, I hope you have all enjoyed my, including this one, 88 podcasts. I am hoping to be back at some point. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane, and most importantly, for the last time, keep on rocking.